Hey guys, so today I wanted to discuss something very important when it comes to your sales process and specifically your closing rate if you're a coach, if you're an agency. And I'm not going to be giving you another sales training. There's a ton of those on YouTube, how to sell more people, how to raise your closing rate, how to do sales calls better. That's not what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about how do you actually improve your sales process as a whole so that it compounds and reflects on your closing rate. So basically, what happens before that sales call and how that can actually be leveraged to increase your closing rate on the sales calls to 30 to 40%. So if you need to raise your closing rate, or if your closing rate is below 30-40% right now, watch this video and hopefully you will find value in it, and it could be something that you can implement. So yeah, if you found any value in it, or if you got any ideas from it, just please take action and implement something like this into your own sales process so that you can see your closing rate shoot up and sell more people and collect more. So in the coaching space and the consulting space, a very big problem is your closing rate. When your closing rate is about 30 to 40%, it really sucks because you're losing so much time on the sales call. The ratio for the calls that you close isn't really there. Now, I wanted to run through how you can close consistently over 30 to 40% with or without a closer. And the first thing I wanted to take off is a misconception that a lot of people have when it comes to low closing rates. They try to do everything from hiring closers to doing discovery calls to looking at their sales calls, doing sales calls reviews, getting sales coaches, instead of looking at their overall sales process. So what comes actually before you get on a sales call with a person. The problem is this is how most coaches and agencies' sales processes look like. So their sales call pre-framing will only take 50%, then the sales call is going to take on 50% of the weight as well. Or even worse, your sales calls pre-framing is just the prospect booking a call. Maybe they see some VSL or some automated webinar, they book a call, and then you have to do all of the hard work on the sales call, and you have to lift 80% of the weight with the actual sales call. So then you get flooded with objections, with disqualified leads, with everything you can think of, and then you ultimately do not close enough people. Too many business owners think that sales is just about calls, but the sales process is way longer, and you need to leverage the entirety of the sales process in order to be able to compound the actual sales process itself, and as a result, increase your closing rate. And if this is what your whole sales process looks like right now, it's completely understandable why your closing rates are low and below 10 or 20%. It will never happen again. Your sales calls have to stop doing all the heavy lifting when it comes to handling objections, qualifying prospects, and conveying to your prospects that you are genuinely there with pure intentions to help them. But this sales process isn't balanced like that. It's improperly balanced. So the solution is to restructure that sales process to where prospects get onto the sales call with you and have their credit cards in hand, or at least on the most part, they will have their credit cards in hand. Now, before we cover the actual process, I need to mention that from my experience, the only solution that will enable you to delegate 90% of your sales process will be leveraging conversations and authentic conversations with your prospects, or in other words, chatting with them on a platform of your choice. This could be texting them or using social media platforms, and then having those authentic conversations with them to pre-frame them before the call. The cheapest way to do this without sacrificing any of your time would be to hire and train a $3 per hour VA, or you can hire a more experienced and trained growth specialist. If you can hire that VA and pay them $3 per hour and actually implement that VA into the system, the ROI will be one close in every 3 calls. So that's a very lucrative ROI for you, even if you're going to be hiring one more team member, or in other words, hiring a VA onto your team. To actually be able to close 30 to 40% of your calls, you need to follow a 90-10 sales rule on these sales calls. And you've probably heard the 80-20 principle countless times, but in sales it should be adjusted even more if you want to guarantee yourself a consistent closing rate above 30 to 40%. And we found that to achieve a consistently high closing ratio, 90% of your objections, your qualifications, your triaging process needs to be handled before the sales call. And now you might be thinking, okay, so I just have to take discovery calls. Well, that's not all of that process can be handled through authentic conversations, and then prospects will go directly to sales calls. Yes, it's possible. So your process has to look something more like this, the 90-10 balanced sales system. So 20% of the process is starting the conversation, engaging the prospect with a KG while hyper qualifying that the prospect is a good fit. Then another 15% of the sales process is establishing a second and third touch points of rapport by getting them into your private community system and then possibly sending them another sales asset. 40% of this entire process, the biggest part of it, should be triaging and handling objections of the prospect. The most important part to actually lift all that heavy weight off of your sales call and do it before the call. The last 15% before the 10% will be establishing the last point of rapport before the call by selling them a homework resource to make sure they actually show up on your calls. And finally, the last 10% is the actual sales call. And during this entire process, we're able to build an additional point of rapport with growth specialists who are able to build genuine bonds and connections with these prospects through these conversations. So they literally feel like they've become friends with what your company represents. Hopefully that makes sense. And with this, they feel like you're really trying to actually help them and not just take their money, because they see you as a friend. Now let me actually explain every step of the sales process and how it factors into you only having to do 10% of the entire sales process work, or your closing having to do that last 10% of this entire process. Step one is to engage the prospect, and the best way to engage a prospect is to engage their croc brain, and this is by leveraging a knowledge gap. So what do you know that they don't about solving their specific challenge? And there are 3 levels of the brain, by the way. The croc brain is reactive, the midbrain analyzes, and then the neocortex is logical. So we don't want to be speaking with the reactive side of the brain, and when people are scrolling their social media, they're using their croc brain or their reactive part of the brain, and we want to get past that to their neocortex and engage the logical side of the brain so we can actually logic through this with them and then present them so they can make a better decision when it comes to speaking with you. If you try to speak with them in their croc brain, every stranger, they're going to think of you as stranger danger in their DMs, and this is why you need to engage their croc brain with a surprising knowledge gap, and then use the knowledge gap or use what you know and they don't to get to the logical part of the brain. So how do you actually do this? You use Lowenstein's gap theory. In a recent study, a group of subjects were tested of what would create the most curiosity. The subjects were tested in a game of trivia to see how they engage. The study found that the participants who were the least interested in the trivia were those who either already knew the answer or already were extremely confident that they know the answer. Then, when they came across a question that they had some idea about, or maybe they didn't know the answer completely, they lacked the confidence or had gaps, and their curiosity skyrocketed. So their compulsion to know the answer was so great that they were even willing to pay for the information, even though the information would be revealed at the end of the session. To create an engagement, we need to shift our thinking from what information do I need to convey to what questions do I want my audience to ask me. The trivia people here had curiosity. They wanted to know the answer. They were asking, what is the answer to this question? It's the same mindset that you should be implementing when you're trying to engage your prospects. And we do this by creating knowledge gaps. So we take problems that people already know and then create unexpected solutions that, again, you know and they don't, which create curiosity and actual need for them to close the gap. For example, if you're a fitness coach and you have a program to lose 8 kilograms in 2 weeks without going to the gym, open the conversation by asking, you look like you've been hitting the gym, but have you tried to do any exercises outside of the gym to assist with your weight loss? Now this is a surprising, how can I do exercise outside of the gym to assist my weight loss and maybe lose weight faster? Then you close this gap with a resource that shows the framework of that unexpected solution. So this could be a PDF, a flowchart. Again, for this example, it would probably be a video if it's a fitness coach, but whatever applies to your market and what you're trying to sell. It just depends on what resonates best with who you're selling to. 2 is establishing the second and third touch point, and this step is crucial in building trust with the prospect because it shows them that you are really there to actually help them and not just take their money. So in step 2, you establish a second and potentially third point of rapport by inviting the prospect into your private community or your ecosystem. If you do not have a private community yet, you're missing out on owning your own attention, because if you're using Instagram or you're using any other social media platform that generate attention, that platform owns attention. Instagram owns the attention of your prospects, because after they click on your profile, they see, maybe they scroll through your content, they're going to go to someone else's profile, maybe even your competitor. So in your community, you own people's attention, and when you invite someone into community, you're able to indoctrinate them into your own system and into your way of thinking and solving their specific challenge. Recently, we leveraged this to build out a community for Amazon FBA coaching client, and we built the community up to 1,000 members. So then we had emails of 1,000 members that we could now send daily newsletters to establish another touch point through email and nurture them and start doing automated web. And the optional thing with that is you can do automated webinars to claim low-hanging fruit every single month. So the community was the second or third step in the rapport building. The second step could be a more general resource or knowledge gap resource that indoctrinates the prospect into your way of doing things. For example, another lead magnet, another sales asset that you can send. I encourage you to have the second and third point of rapport in this system. So first you introduce a lead magnet, and then you introduce a community in this second step of the sales process. That's exactly what we do. We put them through a lead magnet before we give them the invite to the community. And then in the community, they're even indoctrinated further into the system. And once the prospect is in the free private community, they're connected with you, but more importantly, they are connected with a ton of other people who share their interests. It's kind of like a small world where they're all trying to solve or overcome the same challenge. And what I recommend you add to your community is a testimonial section for your private students so that the free members can see the results you're delivering for your private coaching. And also, again, the bonus of this is you can connect communities to an email nurturing sequence, because everyone who joins the community, you could collect their email, and they basically with that opt in into your newsletter, which you can create another touch point of rapport by sending daily value letters that could be automated with AI. If you need templates for the email nurturing sequences, or you need the AI prompt to actually write them specifically for your niche, just send me a DM about it. So then in step 3, this step takes 40% of the whole sales process. And this is where you chat triage the prospect, and it's basically where the magic happens. Because of all the trust and rapport and authority built up in steps 1 and 2, now you have leverage over the prospect to the point where you can start asking more tough questions and basically triage them through chat. And this is usually what the growth specialists do. With this step, there's 2 crucial points you need to keep in mind or it will fail. These questions, these triage questions, have to feel natural and fit into the conversation, and they cannot feel like interrogation questions, or the prospect will get spooked, or you'll just get ghosted. The second thing with this is the prospects have to feel motivated throughout this whole process. So for example, if you're asking them their goals or how committed they are to solving the issue as soon as possible, you have to motivate them when they give you answers. For example, if you're an investment coach that charges $5,000 for a crypto program and you need to find out what is the prospect's capability to actually invest in themselves or invest in their program, you can say, I can see how motivated you are to get this rocket launched off the ground and into space. To be honest, I don't meet many new people here who are hungry like you to win. With your current ambitions, what's your financial goal with the crypto market in the next 3 months? Like, where do you want to be? Prospect will usually answer something like, I don't know, man, to be honest, I just want to make a living and escape my 9 to 5, maybe somewhere in the range of 20K in profits. Again, that's the prospect's goal in the next 3 months. Then your chat flow will be, wow, you're really shooting for the stars, and I'm 100% sure you'll get there, because unlike a lot of people in this space, I see that you've got a crazy amount of urgency. You know, I started with 3K in my bank account and it 12x'd 4 months. I'm just curious, LOL, when you get to that 20K goal, how much of a multiple will it be of where you are at now, right? So we're using kind of a math equation, or the growth specialists or the VAs will use this to actually calculate and see if the prospect you're talking to is qualified and can actually afford your program. The prospect will say something like, thanks man, and a 12x return in 4 months is crazy. For me, that would be around 3x. So now we know that 20K goal will be 3 times more than the prospect is at right now. So we can assume that the prospect is at around 7K right now. And they have enough to actually pay for the program. And then with this, you can continue motivating the prospect and keep triaging them to find out more answers. So for example, so you're a bit more conservative than I thought. Why are you even doing this? Is it just the dread of the 9 to 5? Yeah, I can't risk to go too aggressive with it. I'm scared I'm gonna lose it and get stuck in the 9 to 5. Then you can say, yeah, that makes sense for sure, especially if you're relying on University of YouTube for advice. You seem like you really hate the 9 to 5 though. I can't even imagine what you do there. Might be a dumb question, but I assume you've seen the cartoon Aladdin as a kid and you might remember the genie. So here this is literally a flow that we used, and this is a flow that you can implement into your thing if you choose to do this. How much would you be willing to put on the line if a genie of your own could 3x the speed that you get to the 20K goal and quit that dreadful 9 to 5? So this is basically the growth specialist putting forward the offer, because this prospect's goal is to get to 20K per month in 3 months, and the growth specialist is saying, what if we could do that in a month? How much would you give up for that? So this messaging sequence was built out to understand how much the prospect has to invest. If there's an objection on the call, you have leverage against it now because you know how urgent they are. Not only does this message help you understand if the finances of your prospect line up, it also motivates the prospect with acknowledging and motivating responses, which builds rapport and trust for the sales call. To be able to pull off the third step, we take a look at your sales calls and we see what are the most common disqualifications and objections, no matter how big or small they are, and then we convert all of them into chat flows. So it could be something like too expensive, that's the usual objection, or not the best time right now, or I have something coming up right now, I can't actually do this right now, or I can't take action on it now, and even the I need to think about it. So every little objection, every little disqualification can be converted into a chat flow so that you don't have to confront it on a sales call. And then comes step 4. This is reinforcing the values with the prospect. The principle here is no homework, no 90% show up rate. So step 4 is all about increasing your show up rates. With every day that passes between the booking and the call, you're pre-framing power in the prospect's head because the connection becomes weaker and weaker. So from the day you book them on a call to the day they actually get on the call, they start having some doubt in their mind if you're not following up with them properly. And you might know about, the call follow-ups. Please remember to show up to the call, or you have a call on X day, make sure you show up. But those call follow-ups don't really work. The reason they don't work is because they can actually have an adverse effect on the prospect, because the prospect then start having doubt that why is this guy following up, or why is this girl following up with me so much? Are they trying to push something in my face that I don't want, or give me something that I don't want on that sales call? And are they trying to sell me? So they can get spooked by that. So you might have experienced, if you ever were pitched on a webinar, or maybe got triaged on a discovery call and then booked a sales call for a few days, knowing that you would be sold on that sales call. The day of the discovery call, you might have had all the energy, you might have known this is the solution for you, but then as the time passed between the discovery call or maybe the webinar that you watched and kind of set you up for that sales call, as the time passes, day after day, you start having more and more doubt about that solution. And the same thing happens with your prospects who book discovery calls or sales calls with you. To fix this, we need to reinforce the fact that we are really trying to be of value to them to make sure they show up. Instead of sending those multiple follow-ups, like I mentioned, about reminding them about the call, you need to send the homework in the form of a sales asset that will prepare them for the call with you, or help them understand the solution to their problem a little bit better. So a sales asset, again, it could be a video, a PDF, a resource basically that's gonna either prepare them for the call or help them understand the solution to their specific challenge a little bit more. Then once that sales asset is sent, you need to create an obligation for them to actually go through it before the call and how many ever days that sales call is scheduled for. And basically now what you are able to do is, instead of following up and saying, hey, just wanted to remind you about our session on Wednesday, you can say, hey, did you find any time to check out that video I sent? It should definitely help you understand XYZ. If you have any questions about it, drop it in the chat and I'll make sure to cover it during our session on Wednesday. So it kind of shifts the dynamic about how you actually follow up with these prospects and how you increase your show up rates. Instead of following up with them about the actual call, you follow up with them about the resource, which makes them stop seeing you as someone who's just trying to sell them and instead see you as someone whose main priority is really just to help them. Then the final step, the fifth step, is the last 10%. And after all of this rapport, after all of these stages, this is the easiest. 1 through 4 do all of that heavy lifting. So when closing your prospect, you will just clarify any additional information, sometimes handle some last minute objections. These objections are easy to handle because the leverage you gain in step 1 through 4, and this step could be either done by you or a closer. So if you want to test this system on your own and have any questions, just shoot me a DM. And if you want us to show you how we can automate 95% of your client attraction process while increasing your customer lifetime value by tuning into a non-competitive pocket in your market, increasing your closing rate to a minimum of 30 to 40% by using the process I mentioned in the video, so getting you to 90% plus show-up rates and getting your CPA, your cost per acquisition or customer acquisition cost, lower than it costs to fill up your. If that is something you are interested in, send me a DM and we can book a strictly no sales discovery session for me or someone from my team to help you build out your own custom client attraction roadmap. Worst case scenario with this, you'll get a free game plan to automate 95% of your client attraction and add 30K per month in the process in under 50 days by leveraging a sales ecosystem. And best case scenario, we'll get to do all of this for you and implement it. So yeah, if you found any value in it, or if you got any ideas from it, just please take action and implement something like this into your own sales process so that you can see your closing rate shoot up.